What up, muchachos? Lot Fader back here with 2 free picks for you guys. This time it's going to be for UFC Fight Night. Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov, taking place Saturday, February the 6th at the UFC's Apex Center in Las Vegas, pretty sure. Anyway, let's jump right into it. The first play will be for the fight between Diego Ferreira and Beneil Dariush. I saw one place that it's supposed to be the main event of the prelims, and then I saw somewhere else that's going to be the first fight of the main card. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be somewhere around then. Okay, so let's start with their first fight, which was about 7 years ago now. Really the only thing that we can take away from that fight is the grappling exchanges. Because these guys, I mean, they were already high-level grapplers. They're very high-level grapplers. So since then, you know, they've probably become incrementally better as grapplers, but they've become exponentially better, both of them, as strikers, especially Ferreira. Not only has he become a better striker, he's completely changed his approach. Stylistically, he's completely different from the way he fought Dariush 7 years ago, which is why on the feet, I would expect the fight to go a little differently. But anyway, the fact that they're both very high-level grapplers is obviously a huge part of this play, right? You guys remember Jandy Joba and Mackenzie Dern from whatever it was, like a month ago. Same idea. It's going to be hard for either one to submit the other. And if you look at the people that they have submitted, you know, they're not submitting other high-level grapplers. I mean, these two are probably number 1 and number 2 in the division. What we did see in that first fight is the grappling exchanges were pretty equal. No one really was able to put the other person in danger, in too much danger. I would say Dariush probably got the better of Ferreira slightly, but the main idea is submissions are pretty much out of the window with these two guys. It's hard to imagine one or the other submitting the other, one submitting the other. Beneil Dariush, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who competed at a high level in the world of Jiu-Jitsu. He competed in countless tournaments and finished in the top 3 in all of them. And then Ferreira is a 3rd degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Okay, they also have some knockouts. Dariush is coming in with 2 straight knockouts. Now the guys that they've knocked out, both of them, all of them have one thing in common, the exact same thing in common. I'm sure they have more than one thing in common, but one thing that I noticed that they all have in common. If either guy was able to get them to the ground, they wouldn't get back up. Every person that Ferreira and Dariush knocked out were not good grapplers, terrible grapplers. And that's important because those guys are so concerned with getting taken down. They're so worried about the fight going to the ground that it leaves them vulnerable to getting hit. It opens up the striking for Dariush, for Ferreira. So they're all fucked up, like worried about the takedowns, and Dariush and Ferreira are piecing them up on the feet. Or in the case with Drakkar Klose was just like, fuck this. He just started swinging punches, and Dariush, who's a pretty good counter striker, was like, all right, let's go then. And then walked him down, hit him with a beautiful counter left hook. One of the greatest knockouts like in UFC history. You know the iconic photo with DC, Anik, and Rogan where DC's like this. I don't know if I got out of the camera there, but you know the photo that I'm talking about. That was when Dariush knocked out Klose. Not only was the knockout like a really exciting knockout, but also the way he walked away after, just the walk off. You know, guys usually go to the ground and wait for the ref to pull them off. Dariush knew that he had knocked out Klose, and yeah, it was spectacular. If you get a chance, check it out. But so that advantage that they've had over those guys that they've been able to score knockouts on, they won't have in this fight. So I see this as being a very technical battle. These are 2 very high level guys. High stakes chess match. That's what I always say with these overs. That's the kind of stylistic matchup that I'm looking for. Ferreira doesn't throw power punches, which is another huge part of this play. I've actually heard his corner telling him, I want 5 punch combinations, no power, which means like don't even end your combinations with a power punch. That makes it very hard for Dariush to counter him, because he's not, you know, when you're throwing power punches, that's when you leave yourself a little more vulnerable to getting countered yourself. You know, Ferreira doesn't leave a lot of openings for that. He also pushes the pace. He moves forward, which is also going to make it difficult for Dariush to counter him. So yeah, I mean, what did I say? The play, the fight to go to decision, -120. That's the play I'm going with for that fight. Fight to go to a decision. Benny Dariush, Diego Ferreira, -120. All right, last play, main event, bread and butter. Right, we killed it with this play last year. Over 2.5 rounds. Alexander Volkov, Alistair Overeem. Obviously, just do it with every main event, but I really like it with this one. We'll start with Volkov. This play has hit in every single one of Volkov's UFC fights, and he's fought, how many has he fought now? Quite a few, like he's at least 7 or 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8. 8 fights, 7 of them had hit, and in the most recent one's the first time that it didn't hit. It looked well on its way to. He just threw like a front teep kick, not a kick with much power, to the stomach of Harris, and I guess it just hit Walt Harris. I guess it just hit the wrong spot, and Harris went down. It was strange. You see that happen sometimes. Like it's a freak accident, and Harris is put away. Harris is put away early by the high level guys. Even Overeem scored a second round knockout of Walt Harris, so I'm not too worried about that. For Volkov, it's a combination of him being someone that's hard to hit, and he's also, like Ferreira, he doesn't throw a lot of power in his punches, so that's why a lot of his fights go longer. Like I said, he's hard to hit, so when he has been knocked out, I think that was Derek Lewis, knocked him out with like 10 seconds to go in the fight. Actually, I'm going to talk about that later on. But anyway, and for him, when he's scoring knockouts, it's from an accumulation of punches. Even I know the knockout of Verdum went down as a KO, but that was really an accumulation of punches. Like he was beating the shit out of Verdum for a good round and a half, and then finally landed one shot that knocked him out. So it does take some time for Volkov when he scores his knockouts. Overeem, players hit for Overeem in 2 of his 3 most recent fights. Overeem, there was a time where there was no chance he would ever want to take an over with Alistair Overeem. He was reckless. He just moved forward, rolled through his opponents. Then he went on a stretch during his UFC career. What happened? I had more written down here. What the fuck? He went on a stretch during his UFC career where he lost 3 of 4 fights. 2 of them were in the first rounds. There we go. 2 of them were in the first round, and then he changed his approach after that. Started to become a lot more cautious, a lot more technical, a lot more careful. And he's a completely different fighter. If you go watch a fight of Alistair Overeem, like 2013, 2014, you watch a fight from him today, he looks completely different. So he's had 14 fights since that time in his career where he lost 3 of 4, 2 in the first round. 14 fights since then, and he's been stopped in the first round twice. So 2 times during a stretch of 4 fights, way back in 2014, 14 fights since then, and only been stopped in the first round twice, in less than 2.5 rounds, period. Twice during that 14 fight stretch. And the 2 people that did it were Francis Ngannou. No one's ever going to accuse Alexander Volkov or anybody in that division of having the same kind of power as Alexander Volkov. Completely different. And then even Stipe. Stipe's got a lot of power now. Definitely more power than Volkov. And Stipe actually knocked him out with ground and pound. He took him down and unleashed shots while he was in Overeem's full guard. Not really Volkov's game anyway. And so since he's changed his approach stylistically, he's been in there with Junior Dos Santos, been in there with Mark Hunt. Like it's coming close to Francis Ngannou power when you're talking about Mark Hunt. Fabricio Verdum, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He did get knocked out in that fight, but with 4 seconds to go. And Augusto Sakai, his most recent fight, went through 4 rounds with that guy. These guys all have way more power than Alexander Volkov, and Overeem found a way to either beat them or get to that 2.5 round mark. I don't want this video to get too long. I was considering taking Overeem, but in the end, I wasn't sure if he was if his grappling has progressed to the point where he'll be able to out-grapple Volkov, because that's what he'll need to do to win this fight. Hopefully he does grapple though, kill some time, hold up Volkov against the cage. And obviously a knockout is a lot less likely when they're up against the cage. So yeah, this is a good spot. We've seen Overeem in there with guys with a lot of power, and he's been very cautious. What he was doing with Rosensteiger and he was doing with Sakai, who both those guys got a lot of power. When they would start to unleash, he would just shell up and he would just hold up his guard and wait for them to finish. And as a counter striker, it's a high risk reward if you're gonna counter strike in those situations, because if you can land one, you're gonna hit them clean. But when they're unleashing like that and you try to counter strike, you leave yourself at a high risk of getting hit by one of those winging punches. Overeem doesn't take that risk nowadays. He just shells up. He's like, I'm gonna let you tire yourself out, and I'll pick and choose my spots when I want to counter strike. The other good thing about that is, this is my final point. Volkov fought a guy like that, and Derek Lewis has mastered that, playing possum and then exploding. So he's had experience with someone like that, and he was knocked out by him. So he's not going to come in with a whole lot of arrogance, like no one can knock me out. So he's going to be a little more cautious than he was in the fight against Lewis. So yeah, love this play. Like I said, hitting every one of Volkov's UFC fights except for one, and in two of Overeem's 3 most recent fights. So those are my 2 plays. I'll say them again. Diego Ferreira, Beneil Dariush, fight to go to the distance, -120, and the over 2.5 rounds in the main event, Overeem, Volkov. Thanks for watching. Best of luck if you're tailing, and have a wonderful day.